right, well, welcome back now, and here we are, and we're doing the thing here, guys. You know what it's all about. And by now we're doing the 10th episode of Looking Glass Forum, and whether you've been with us through the whole entire podcast genesis of this wonderful and remarkable, phenomenal podcast sensation, right? As we pod twist. And as we go through this process of kind of recreating and redeveloping and putting the old podcast format through the Rumble video upgrade, and we start to kind of reach a new audience, and we start to see the original starting position where we started with this podcast historically and a chronicle juxtaposed with the kind of massive acceleration of events that took place between, obviously the acceleration of history itself, but we're looking at here the progression of the really deep core tectonic shifting within the populace within the United States and the outspilling of all the political effects across the horizon of the international landscape. And as we go back over the series over the last 5 years, and we start to put together our interesting series here, it seems that it becomes demonstrated in this incredible way and made highly visible the incredible national catharsis that we're going through here in America. And it's very strange to kind of notice how how it takes time for people to learn and to develop and to just become informed in this process, which we will euphemistically call the awakening of the American people. But it's really this kind of slow motion landslide as the popular sentiments and the conscious awareness of all the people begins to line up with the truth, and we begin to break out of the little psyop, the little mockingbird media, CIA spun news delusion that we're really all in. We're in this kind of weird media delusion where we're imbibing the tone and tenor of the Kool-Aid that these people are feeding us, whether it's to dumb us down and to believe that Joe Biden is intelligent president. He's the most intelligent that I've ever seen him in years. And all the time, Hunter Biden, porno crack pedophile king, right, is up there running the auto pen. I mean, is this like a movie? Are we living in some kind of weird, they live? It's we need to take the glasses off and then put them back on again and then take them off and see that these people are freaks. They're not even humans, right? They're not humans anymore. And they're supposed to be standing up for democracy. And they're up there treasonously, the most weird and disgusting, lecherous, treacherous, vile animals, right? And they're up there running us into the ground because Obama has got a committee or something, and no one will tell us the truth but Alex Jones, right? What kind of fucking world are we dealing with here, guys? This is crazy. And they're trying to find the new leftist Joe Rogan. God help us all. So you can see what we're all about here, guys. We are openly inviting you in. We're on the Big Ten. Big Ten. This is special. So we're leveling you up, right? The initiation process levels you up, right? You're leveling up with us. And we with you. And where we go one, we go all, right? That kind of reminds me of the Q thing, which was almost so hopeful. It's like Project Trust, like Operation Trust, right? It's so hopeful, oh, this is really it. This is the way, right? This is the answer. Believe in this wholeheartedly. Q will save us. So it's the whole process of spinning out the American people, because when you spin out the American people, you're spinning out the mass consciousness of the driver who's really in the driver's seat of this whole freak show, this whole madhouse, this whole post-constitutional, not an empire, right? It's not an empire, right, Mark Levin? It's not. We're just running it on executive orders and executive promulgations and an auto pen. It's just running on autopilot, man. It's not an empire, though. It's still got some kind of roots of constitution. The international trade, right? The International Court of International Trade or something. What kind of communist court is that? Of course, it's some kind of magistrate court, right? It's some kind of Article 1 congressionally instituted magistrate court, right? So it's not really a constitutional Article 3 judicial branch, original constitutional court system, right? It's just probably a Roosevelt court or something, right? We'll have to go back and look. Some kind of propped up federal magistrate judiciary, Article 1 judiciary made by the Congress. And it could be unmade, right? It could be unmade. That's the thing about it. And I don't know what the purpose of it that it serves or how it becomes a thing like this. And so that's why I wonder, And so it's blatantly political. And so I ask these people, you have to do this kind of like basic litmus test. Like if Kamala Harris is in there and she wanted to run these tariffs because she thought she was an economic wizard now, and she was the president, Kamala, would this judge be doing this, right? So that's the kind of the litmus test, and you can see that no, he would not be doing it. So it's just political partisanship, and so that's why the judiciary's gone into this kind of gone rogue into this judicial insurrection, right? And so they want to run they run the country and dissolve executive power through negation, right? So they can negate presidential powers through this arbitrary means of trying to bind up the executive branch. And of course, we're entering this weird constitutional crisis. And it's really quite horrifying, the state of our country, because we're not surviving. We're not doing well. Like the Moody's downgrade and the move of the entire judiciary, this kind of like elitist, Jesuit-trained university, like law school type individuals, right? They went to Harvard, right? Where all the anti-Semites are at. You can't even let your kids go anywhere near Harvard. They're just going to turn them into a bunch of like Palestinian guys wearing like little like Arabic turbans, right? What the hell? And so it's the same thing with Columbia University, right? It's just this process of turning your youth into this useful cannon fodder, like the useful Jacobins. They're just the human entanglement that can lead them further towards their revolutionary state, right? And it's really just counter-revolution. We already had our revolution in America, but they're just trying to counter-revolution us back to collapsing our civilization here in order to make us insolvent to our Bank of London creditors, right? So that's what this process is about. This is this process of trying to destabilize the United States and bringing us into this ruin and calamity. And of course, it's been a long-term project. These guys have been working hard. They haven't had any limits put on them. And we have to ask more questions about what was in these John Podesta files, guys, and what was in Anthony Weiner's laptop. I literally was like going to the White House email board to go like send a message to the email, like in an email to the White House, like, what about Anthony Weiner's laptop, and what about John Podesta's emails where they're talking about sending $50,000 of flying in $50,000 worth of hot dogs and pizzas and stuff. And so we have to get to the bottom of this, man. We have to with this gnarly, disgusting, horrifying, elitist monstrosity is been set up from the jump to really be swallowed into their own black hole that they've created here. And this process of blackmailing each other constantly with these sexual perversions and with just the whole control of the Hollywood celebrity system of mastering the popular consciousness with pop culture. So you got to bring out Rihanna, and everyone screams. Like, remember back when it was like the Backstreet Boys or the New Kids on the Block, or you tried them out, and then like 50,000 girls pour out of the apartment tenements, right, and just scream down the sidewalk and chase them. Like the Elvis, like it's like you're controlling the mass consciousness of the people, their most inward, most sensitive and delicate little conscience about how they feel about themselves and how they love Jeffy and not Jimmy. Like I can't remember. I'm failing to remember the New Kids on the Block name. Jordan. Oh God, I can remember. I don't want to say the names, right? I can't remember, but I did say one of them, right? So that must have been the favorite one, right? That's our favorite one. We got to have the little Jordan sticker for the New Kids on the Block poster. And so that's the derivative effect of this entire cultural slave plantation that we're on, where we have to kind of like be idealistically and ideologically controlled through these masters and gatekeepers of our own consciousness, right? And our own, like, the framing our own thoughts for us, right, through these movies. And so they've been constantly using the power of this. Like, if you're old enough, you can remember E.T. He's with Elliot on the bike, and they're flying over the moon. Oh, the bike is flying. Oh, E.T. He's got a magic. He's from another planet, right? He's extraterrestrial. It's like a spaceship. It's a UFO. It's UFO indoctrination, and he has a magical finger. Oh, and it glows, and you fly over the moon, right? And so this can have an incredible influence over an entire culture. Like Michael Jackson jumps out in the background. He's doing the moves, like, right, doing the moves, right. Thriller, right? So these are the cultural branding and almost the tattooing and almost the process of scarification deep within our consciousness. We've been controlled all these years through this system. And it's always been like showing us how the United Nations is the good guy, right? Oh, the sum of all fears. oh, run down. It was a Ben Affleck who was in like, run down the street real fast with their walkie-talkie. Sum of all fears, I got to save the world, got to get the United Nations, right? It's always this process of breaking us down deep in our most inner cerebral cortex, right? And we have to learn the impressions that this system of incredibly powerful psychological control has over the populace, right? So it's hard for us to recognize what is really going on. So through this whole entire process, we're slowly breaking down and annihilating all the we're showing a lot of information. You have to do your own research. We show a lot of the research, and we try to make it available as much as possible. But we show how this entire process of becoming these brain-dead little minions and dumbed down and servile receivers of their message, right? It reminds me of that Eagles song, Hotel California, and you are open to receive, right?
Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely place, such a lovely place. They're living it up at the Hotel California. What a nice surprise, what a nice surprise. Bring your alibis. Mirrors on the ceiling, they pick champagne on ice, and she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. And in the master's chambers, they gathered for the feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. The last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man, we are programmed to receive. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
And you can never leave, right? So you're open to receive. You're a receiver, and you're there to just basically take in the enframing of their distorted propagation of ultimately an anti-American and an anti-Western civilization worldview. And so I'm open to understanding how much we might not know, how much we might not totally understand that in the future, in the years to come, that we're going to have to sit down and kind of recollect and reorientate ourselves once more because of new information that comes out. So I don't put it past people. People are questioning. I don't think we understand how the way that these nuclear weapons are deployed. I don't think we understand that perfectly. And there's a big secret. You can watch Oppenheimer. You can go become a nuclear physicist and try to put it together in your own mind. But for the way I understand these things to work, I think there's big questions. There's a lot that we're going to learn about what we do not know over the next. And we always like to, right? It's 2025, right? We like to pretend like we've got it all figured out and we've got it all understood. We couldn't even get these fuckers to tell us with a clear answer. Was it Wuhan or was it a bat? Right? The comedian, the Bat Cave, Penguin. And so we're so layered under these different compartmentalization of ignorance that the American people are just completely avalanche buried under. There's so many limited hangout operations that are designed to make us never know what is going on. And so while we're trying to work out how the economy can be brought back, you can see that we're in this terrible bind because they're not going to address the Federal Reserve. Apparently the Federal Reserve head can't even be fired by the government of the United States. So unless we're going to go full Andrew Jackson here, and Trump is they wore that man out. It's been 10 years, it's been a decade of us trying to get a fair hearing, and these people are a mockery. They're just they're a profanity. It's an insult to all of our reason and our intellects to deal with these completely malformed and traitorous criminals, this disgusting syndicate. Who are these people up there supposedly running the committee of the auto pen in the background? Politics is so intense. that we can't even hold these people accountable. They're just in this milieu, this political gray area where no one can really approach them with the law because their political profile is such that they're insulated, right, in this kind of senior executive service secret society of the untouchables, right? I guess if they go kill each other off, if they go Antonin Scalia each other in the back when they go to their secret great Elkhorn secret society lodge meeting, right, in the back of the farm with the rich billionaire, and then you just don't come home that time and no one says anything. It's just sad. It's so sad how he just passed away. And you go ask Grok and Google AI and stuff now, they'll tell you how it's, they'll repaint. That's why AI is so like disgusting and horrifying, because it's just there to just lie to us. And we're supposed to be convinced of its divinity and its incredible usefulness to just distort all history, right? It just tells us this crap. You can get it to say one thing and then say something else, right? It just totally contradicts itself. It's so bizarre. It's more bizarre than any of us really anticipated, right? And so AI is really us. It's really just a reflection of our own ignorant and kind of weak buffoonery as we try to like deceive each other with our own political bias and the chicanery of our own falsified news articles that are meant to like steer the population in the direction that we want them to go, but it's not the truth, right? So we're in a post-truth age where we're just there to AI, all the whole apparatus exists to just kind of like simulate a false reality and get you to lull you back to sleep, right? To not get the American people woke up, activated, where they can see what they're dealing with and they can start to see what is really going on here. We are a slave class. We are hypothecated and numbered and serialized and traded financial assets. That's what we are. You're a financial asset. I'm a financial asset. We are basically private investment products of corporations now, right? Because ultimately your value, how much they can borrow against you as a dividend, is a tax paying, and we say taxes, but we know it's really just interest payments on the debt. It's not really taxes, right? It's not like we're like all, it's such a deception. It's such a self-deception. We lie to ourselves because we tell ourselves, oh, everything is in the black. Like we're all good. Like everything is paid, and now we'll just raise little taxes and we'll have some extra money. But like we don't have any extra money. We're in the red. We've already, the future wealth of our children's inheritance has already been spent in the pursuit of this whole debacle, having a Federal Reserve printing press, which constantly day and night borrows trillions of dollars from London and European private bankers. Right? Am I missing something? Did I leave some aspect of this whole predicament that we find ourselves in? Did I leave any of it out? And so we got China up into our electrical grid. I'm reading articles over here. How long before they pull the plug? How long before they act on their advantage they have up in our grid? Do we have any assets to be able to control and to just at will down the power grid in China just whenever we want? What assets do we have? What advantages do we have? What can we do ultimately of how we can put ourselves in a position to dominate our adversaries? Because that's what they're doing that's what they're preparing, guys. That's what they're preparing for America, is putting us in a position where we can't defend ourselves and our military assets are no longer able to defend the homeland. And they can silence this beacon of political liberty, advancing economic prosperity and equal justice under the law, where we're punishing crime, we're punishing evil. That's one of the main things you can see these Marxists, that their whole operation of these twisted fifth column of traitors and Marxists in this country, all through the judiciary, all through state legislatures, all through the state governments in this country. And you can see they're totally willing to let out dangerous psycho killers and rapists in order to go harm the populace, in order to achieve some kind of twisted concept of what their political dialectical triangulation is all about. As long as people are getting hurt, illegal immigrants are here overrunning jobs and destroying the economy and watering down the American populace with illegitimate voters and illegal people. No people are illegal. Well, those people are, because they're illegitimate. They're standing here in our country and they don't belong here. Unless they're processed in, unless we know who they are, because no one knows who the hell they are. They just have made-up names and stolen social security numbers. They should be in prison for all that. All these people are getting to come in here, commit crimes all over the place, and then they're being allowed to leave freely on their own accord, right? Or we give them a free ride. Like, these people should be spending time in jail. You should spend a year in jail for breaking into this country and stealing IDs and all the crimes associated with having to be here illegally and to work illegally. It's a crime wave. And it's a general allowance and condoning the societal normalization of this crime wave through the government policies. It's totally unacceptable. Can't expect anyone to respect or follow the law if these segment of these illegal invaders are allowed to just roam free with no accountability. No one knows who they are. You can get some DNA in a DNA database from some people who are just like hayseeds, just blowing over the border from South America. You can't even get a Netflix account in this country without having some kind of ID or some kind of way, some kind of way to transact in a commercial way. This is all in America. It's all about commercial transactions. These people are getting away with it. The banks, the whole process, the churches, all the charity of the poor of downtrodden people. They have to invade the United States illegally, and we have to fund it, right? So that all this is taxpayer funded, and it's more just the diabolic trickery of delusion, because these weren't even taxes that paid for this. These were just the automatic deductions out of our paychecks that goes to our massive ballooning debt. So we're in some kind of form of insanity where we as the people are starting to like recognize this information. We're starting to like read this encyclopedic dossier indictment against the elite cadre that's running this country. And I don't care if they're the new right or the old left, or these guys are all part and parcel of the same dialectical crisis that they're trying to shoehorn us into this final destruction of America. That's what they want. It's hard for me to believe now that we're being pitiful and merciful to this disgusting and horrifying regime of mass murder in the form of the Communist Party in China, which enslaves its people and uses them in the most pitiless and cynical and vile ways to use taking their body parts, right? And just, this is the antithesis of everything that America stands for. This kind of like unlimited tyranny is the whole purpose for why we have constitutional rights and why we have an American system laid out. And so America exists to be the light in the darkness of the Chinese Communist Party, and we are over here allowing it and having sympathy, and we don't want the people to get too uncomfortable and realize that they need to go out and do something to overthrow their government. We need to do something more here. And I like Trump's first 100 days, but I mean, bless his heart, they just ran him into the ground for 10 years. They threatened his family. Like, the man should have already built more fortunes and more buildings and taken care of more golf courses and lived the life that he had coming to him. But I mean, look what they do. Look what they do. They put you through this process. They steal your life. They steal hours and months and days of your life you can never get back. You got to go to court. This isn't just Donald John Trump. This is like every man, everywhere, all the time, all over the place, right? And like the lady, remember this judge who she just had the illegal immigrants run out the back of her courtroom. Like, we've been dealing with like these kind of judges, these ridiculous white liberal women psychopaths are running courtrooms all over this country, and we're all in terrible danger of having to go through their courtrooms and deal with these people. And there's no telling what will happen or what kind of justice will be served. These people are completely demented and deranged, right? They don't have any kind of concept of the accountability of constitutional law, or there's no kind of redress of the American people against these judicial tyrants and idiots. And all these Article 1 magistrate courts are just, to me, they're so suspect, right? They're so questionable. And the American people deserve to have a constitutional government, right? And that's why I'm waiting for these guys to get back on course. And we can't even get to this place where we reform the current state of careening, collapsing, spiraling, existential debt collapse to the point where our money, it doesn't buy anything. No one wants it anywhere in the world. And we just owe 50 trillion of it, 70 billion trillion of it to some bank conglomerate somewhere. And we're subject. We're subject to the radicalization of this country. They can do a Pol Pot, right? They can do some kind of Cambodia deal. They can, right? That's where we get totally endangered in this country of finding our rights as a people and our constitutional liberties that we're solemnly sworn to protect. And so the more we can inform ourselves as a populace, the better we are. This is an information economy. This is a process. This is a marketplace of ideas. And this is a process of the more we learn, the more the people in the driver's seat, which is us, the American people, can begin to make the right decisions and begin to understand and kind of, well, none of us are experts. And this is technical expertise in the weaponry, the economic weaponry that's being used against us. And that's what the Federal Reserve is. The Federal Reserve is a system of total economic dependence and servitude, right? Where we borrow more and more, the payments go up and up, the interest payments go up and up, right? We can't, right? Have you ever been on credit cards, guys? I mean, everyone can relate. The process of indebting the entire nation through a Federal Reserve printing press is so diabolical. And these moneyed interests, these family lines of noble peerage, right, are the same enemies we've been fighting all along. And they've just brought the ancestors of their opponents in the future under this debt bondage. Right? It's something we've got to focus on. Extremely dangerous, technical, existential debt bondage. And it has us all categorized through perfect technotronic precision. Each of us, each numbered and social security and stamped, birth certificated American person is personally liable for that debt. So that you can see that they like to show us that debt clock just spinning up, 36, 37, 38 trillion. Just goes and goes and goes. And all these American people who are born with a social security number. And like I told you before, not everyone has it. Not everyone's been filed into the system to be a debt slave payer. But you have. If you're listening to this, you have. And I have. And all the people that aren't, like you can imagine Klaus Schwab and all of his buddies and the people around him, and if they're big enough and they're big enough families, right, they have their own private doctors, and they're not certified guys. They're not certified into the system to be a dependent or to receive any of the benefits as a beneficiary of the system, or however you want to look at it, however the jingoistic terms of enslavement are of little interest to me, because we know ultimately that each person with a social security number. Now, Juan Valdez, who just pops over the border and just runs up there and steals the painting work and sends all the money home to Oaxaca or whatever, he does not have a social security number. So all the money that is being borrowed through your representatives, through the Washington, D.C. printing press, all that money that's being borrowed and printed out and you have to pay back and your kids, Juan Valdez doesn't have to pay it back. Okay, he can take the money out of the country, send it to Oaxaca, start a drug cartel organization for himself, and do whatever he wants, but he's not personally responsible for the debt. You are. You and your kids, if they weren't aborted, and their kids after them. I mean, if your kid goes to college and becomes a transgender person and then cuts off their genitalia, then they're probably not going to have any kids. And then they're neutered. They neutered their family line, and then ipso facto, no kids, no future taxpayers or interest payment payers, right? And if we don't have any interest payer payments, then that shit's not getting paid. And that's the end. That's the end of this whole thing. It's technical. It's not personal. It's just business. They're here to technically end this shit. And they're going to do it.
I think human beings, and particularly those people who are appointed to be leaders, have difficulty with complexity. And I think we live in a very, very complex world. And I think particularly those people who are kind of trying to organize it for their own benefit, it becomes very, very complex because we have a number of competing interests. On the one hand, we've got the corporates. And, you mentioned in one of your other interviews, I think, again, it was with Phil, you mentioned Gillette Corporation, for example. But you've got loads more, and many of them are either headquartered in London or the States. For example, Unilever. I think you can pretty much trace Unilever's origins right back to the British East India Company. So these people were running slaves, running opioid trade, are now heavily invested in pharmaceuticals or the arms trade, and so there's pretty much a straight line from where they are now to where they have been, and of course then their major investors and shareholders tend to be those people who have vast amounts of intergenerational wealth. So there's that group of people who are pulling the strings at a corporate level, and it's kind of emerged from what essentially was organized crime. And Whitney Webb writes a lot about this, about the fact that you can trace the origins of many of the people now who are in Trump's front bench team, all the way back to these sort of nefarious organizations and people who kind of own things, literally, physically own an awful lot of the world's resources and supply chains. But then there's the kind of the Five Eyes network, the intelligence agencies. But they tend to be sort of entwined into those corporates in many ways. If you take Palantir as an example, Palantir was initially funded by the CIA, it then became a contractor to the CIA, then became a contractor, for example, in the United Kingdom to the NHS. Now, of course, the announcement that they're going to be creating this master database for every US citizen. But it's very much a corporatized, agency entwined relationship. And then there's the Five Eyes network, which was created after the Second World War, was about collaboration between those nations that during the COVID era were the most fascist, and that sort of rings alarm bells for me. And it implies that there is a kind of collaboration between the Five Eyes nations, and they kind of define the Western agenda to a great extent. And that has a ripple effect through this sort of organized crime mafia and corporatist network as well. So I think there's elements of all of those three things interworking and playing out. But it's impossible, I think, to say that it's the WEF or Bilderberg or Unilever or Palantir alone who are sort of controlling things. I think it is an organized, testosterone-fueled mess. And of course, it involves money and Wall Street as well, it's interesting that Howard Lutnick, for example, he wanted to be Treasury Secretary, but his agenda is to drive dollar stable coins as the sort of defining digital architecture, supposedly private sector digital architecture for the new era of money. And of course, if they own money and dollar hegemony, then they have cracked this particular nut. They will have global control. And of course, the CIA and the intelligence agencies are all over stablecoins. So it's an extraordinarily difficult thing to say it's those guys and not those guys. I think it's all in the mix. And I think there's a lot of sort of internecine squabbling that we don't get to see much about because it's jockeying for position and people trying to make hay, frankly, through totalitarianism.
That's a great breakdown, and Bilderberg is underway as we speak in Stockholm, and there's some great folks on the ground. Dan Dix covering it. Josh Friedman, who I've had on the podcast, he's out there among a few others. I think Jacob Nordengard as well, who's a friend of the podcast. And you commented on Peter Thiel as the de facto president. Trump is a mere hired help from central casting. You've also a new era written about from MAGA to technocracy and Stargate derangement syndrome, and I just feel like it couldn't be any more obvious. I mean, you got Larry Ellison of Oracle coming out. I mean, the whole works, and I just to get your further point, what you just mentioned, if they control the issuance of money digitally, I mean, we're talking about domination of the entire planet. And then my biggest fear is, to take from my past guest, Edwin Black's term, the algorithm ghetto, the social credit system. You can call it whatever you want, digital electronic concentration camp, where they're unifying the digital ID. You guys getting BritCard now? Being talking about the digital IDs, the digital currencies, the digital passports, and then you won't be able to function. It's effectively being put into a physical ghetto or prison. And for me, that's our number one threat because it's global. And if they succeed, there's no escape from it. You can flee Gaza, you can flee Ukraine, you can flee war zones. But you can't flee the 15-minute. I live in a smart city. It's crazy, And so, just any further thought on this threat?
Yeah, it relates to what I was just saying to you about the various constituencies who are driving the agenda. You've got within WEF a number of chapters or interest groups that are specifically focused on smart city developments. And what they're doing is they're seeding, and it's not even, interestingly, they're not actually giving governments money to deliver some of these things. They're essentially giving them vouchers So they're saying if you deliver a sort of smart city, or if you announce that you're going to deliver smart city infrastructure, we'll give you a slug of money. And they're doing this in the United Kingdom in a number of cities. They've announced that London, Leeds, Belfast, and a variety of cities are going to be given, anywhere between $1 billion and $3 or $4 billion to develop smart city infrastructure, and that would include things like 15-minute cities. But what they expect, however, is that money all be spent on WEF partner companies. So they will nominate Huawei. And by the way, these companies are not exclusively Western. We had Rishi Sunak, for example. His father-in-law was CEO of a large Infosys, a large Indian company with its tendrils in just about every corner of central government in the United Kingdom, increasingly in the United States as well, often partnering with some of the software vendors that are developing surveillance technologies and so on. So this voucher system is being used to bribe city authorities and local politicians, and the money is being funneled through central government. But the same thing is happening in terms of organizations like BlackRock as well. I think one of the first things that Keir Starmer did when he became Prime Minister was to invite Bill Gates and Larry Fink to Downing Street to have a chinwag about what they were going to be doing in the United Kingdom. And this meeting happened just a few weeks before the Labour government announced that they were going to charge farmers inheritance tax for passing their farm on to their children. An area that was sacrosanct, that obviously a farm is a working business. It is not something that simply derives wealth to the offspring. But again, that's all about BlackRock and Gates clawing all of these assets from national governments. So I think, again, it's a very internecine web of connections that are driving this particular smart city agenda.
Here's just a quick reminder, guys, of our sponsor, wendyslimited.com. wendyslimited.com has all the hottest new styles, all the most incredible boutique fashion designers available to you. And of course, we're all American, and we're all about making America great again at wendyslimited.com, guys. wendyslimited.com.